Hi everybody. So my last video was on a 335, which was a custom shop one, and I'm just going to remind you again that 335s, early 335s either had a stop tail or a Bigsby, and they would have a custom made plaque. And then in 65, all these changes happened. In 65, the headstock pitch came a little bit up. In 65, the necks got a little slimmer. In 65, they changed from nickel to chrome, and in 65, you can have a mix of any one of those three features. However, by late 65, one of the big determining factors is this trapeze tailpiece. So you have either a stop tailpiece, and these sound more like an electric guitar. These sound more like an acoustic guitar. I'm generalizing because it's best. We only have like 4 or 5 minutes, and then you're gonna be disinterested. That's what they tell us. So stop tail, nickel hardware, guitar like this, pre-65 guitar, will go for a big premium over a guitar like this. But these guitars, these late 60s guitars, are becoming more and more popular with collectors because of the Brazilian rosewood board. We'll get to this guitar later, but I just want to highlight the difference and explain why these guitars, which when they made these 300-400 a year, these were all pretty rare. After Elvis, music boomed. These factories boomed. After the Beatles, same thing. And actually, after Woodstock and the Summer of Love in the late 60s, the whole hollow body movement came along. Rickenbacker sold more semi-hollow bodies. Gibson sold more semi-hollow bodies. Guild could barely keep up with the Starfire series. That Summer of Love, that 67, 68, 69 time period really blossomed for hollow body guitars. And that continued on into the 70s for a lot of people doing the folk boom. And this is something that we have just gotten in. This is a 1971 Gibson ES-335. And this is an unbroken guitar. Right away with the 70s, you know, does it have a volute? It's a 70s piece. Does it say Made in USA back there? And we'll just take a look at that really quick. That Made in USA stamp is something that is always 70s. Why do I mention that? Because these serial numbers are the same. So you can get a 60s serial number and a 70s serial number. They're 6 digits. The big thing to determine a 70s is Made in USA and a volute. If it has a volute, it's 70s. Period. And you still have a trapeze. What it does have are these patent sticker pickups. And patent sticker pickups are going to have this upper mid-range clarity. They sound a lot like Fender products. And these guitars from this era are going to still have mahogany necks. These guitars from this era, pre-76, are still made in the Kalamazoo factory. The Kalamazoo factory that made all these classics are still made here. And this is always real lacquer. That's one thing people that used to poo-poo these 70s guitars back in the late 70s, that they used to complain about they didn't have the stop tail, they didn't have Brazilian boards. You had to admit, they had lacquer finishes, and they sprayed real lacquer in Kalamazoo at the Kalamazoo factory. These days, they spray kind of a mix. They will basically dip the guitar, for lack of a better word, into a plasticized covering, and then that seals up the wood, and then they put the lacquer over it. But these guitars were pure lacquer. That is a cotton-based material. Yes, cotton, like your t-shirt based material, real nitrocellular lacquer. So I'm going to play this guitar through this 1957 GA20, and this deserves a whole nother video. We'll get to that later. Those of you looking for tweed amplifiers are like, oh, they've gotten so expensive. Yeah, there's still some deals out there. These early two-tone Gibsons are strong amps. So what you're getting out of these 70s guitars and what you'd want out of it is just a quality of construction, patent sticker pickups. These tend to go up. I had told you guys 3 years ago, if you're going to invest in guitars, you might want to invest in early 70s Gibsons. And 3 years ago, since then, they've probably doubled in value. You look at a early 70s Les Paul Custom back then compared to now. You look at early 70s 335s back then until now. The demand is higher. The guitar playing public has expanded during COVID. That expansion of all these new guitar players has gone, ooh, I like playing guitar. I'm going to get myself an old vintage guitar, and this 1971 fits that very well. So you get a little larger fret. You have an Indian rosewood board, but it's super high quality. Gibson was very fussy, very proud of what they made. And on that, I'm going to play this guitar, which, by the way, is completely straight, completely original. And I'm going to say one more thing. This walnut finish came out in '69, was discontinued by '77. Walnut brown was a very popular color in cars of this time period, and it is a stain, not a spray. Fenders can be sprayed a color. These are usually stained and then a lacquer over it. And this walnut color can be kind of a baby brown. It can be various degrees. This has kind of a golden hue, you gotta admit. You're gonna point out the yellowed binding, real lacquer. And then I'm gonna point out the tone through this old Gibson amp. I'll say goodbye because this is gonna flood that microphone.